The government is paying YouTubers and influencers to brainwash you into joining the military.
I am here at Fort Benning to see what it takes to be an Army soldier.
For the next 50 hours, I'm going to be experiencing Army airborne training.
I am getting to pretty much join the Navy for a day.
Welcome to the headquarters of the United States Secret Service.
Thank you so much to the United States Army for sponsoring.
Go Army gave me the opportunity to experience things firsthand.
Any interest in joining the Army?
Can't thank the Army enough.
With the U.S. Army.
Go Army.
Gym bros, gamers, travel vloggers, lifestyle channels. The government is wasting millions of our taxpayer dollars trying to pressure Gen Z into service. And the reason is shocking. What's even more bizarre is that no one is talking about it. Maybe they don't want to offend their influencer friends, or even worse, they're waiting for their own paycheck. Why is the United States government the most powerful country in the world paying a group of kids to try to recruit other kids? And just how dangerous is the narrative they're spreading? The U.S. is facing a military recruitment crisis. In 2013, 58,000 men enlisted for service, compared to only 37,700 who enlisted in 2023. That's a 35% decline in just 10 years. Since 2015, the U.S. military has consistently failed to meet its recruitment targets, which is terrifying when you want to maintain your pedigree as the strongest military power in the entire world. And the same thing is happening across the pond. The British Army is the smallest it has been since 1714, and the recruitment crisis is so bad that senior military officials want the government over there to reintroduce conscription.
There's been a bit of talk this week about possible return of conscription. Briefly, can you ever see circumstances in which that might happen?
We may have no choice. The recruiting system that the armed forces has is failed miserably.
Which basically forces people into joining the military. But the US knows that Gen Z has lost trust in its institutions. The war in Afghanistan, the support of Israel, and the very divisive politics in our country has made the younger generation lose hope and trust in the government. So they know trying to use force or coerce them into service will only lead to more pushback. So what do? They turn to influencers.
And I am behind an Apache helicopter.
Humans are very social creatures. We evolved to listen to each other and learn from one another, which is great for the most part. But a huge downside to this is that social proof becomes more important than anything else when presented with a choice to make. Instead of critically thinking for ourselves, we just go with what everyone else is doing. We conform. From ancient Roman gladiators promoting wine and oil, to Queen Charlotte's name and likeness being used by Wedgwood to sell his stuff, to modern day celebrities and influencers. We've always had people who we hold in high regard or trust convincing us to do or buy things. Think about it. Your preferences for a particular fashion style, hobbies, and even opinions on certain matters have changed because of a social media influencer you follow. What's worse is when you follow and like one, the social media algorithms keep serving you others like them until very soon you're in your own little echo chamber where you keep hearing the same things over and over again.
Thank you so much.
Can't thank the Army. Go Army.
Businesses know this. That's why the influencer marketing industry currently stands at $21 billion in 2023, with numbers predicted to keep increasing every single year. And one of the biggest paying customers of this industry is the United States government. I don't have an issue with the government working with influencers. In fact, I think it's a great way to engage with the younger generation, to meet them where they're at. Things like increasing voter participation, promoting public health campaigns, and advocating for climate consciousness are great. The problem I have is with what they've chosen to promote, and even worse, how they've chosen to promote it. Influencers are really good at one thing, making everything look good, including the Army. Why fly a fake plane sitting in front of your boring TV at home when you can fly the coolest and fastest aircrafts equipped with the most sophisticated and tactical weapon systems in the world in real life?
All right, guys, we are currently inside of an Apache helicopter. We just got a briefing on the entire thing. Apparently, this is basically one of the most lethal air vehicles in the entire world right now.
Who cares about Call of Duty and Fortnite when the thrill of the real world is right there waiting for you?
It was time to take my seat at the mop. The first thing I'll say is that to some extent, it really did feel like I was playing a video game.
Are you a fitness enthusiast? The Army has well-rounded fitness programs with challenging workouts to push your body to its limits and improve your strength and stamina.
The Army Combat Fitness Test. There are 6 different events, and we will be graded on an age and gender performance norm scoring scale. This will be testing different fitness components such as strength, endurance, power, and coordination. We got to do this alongside other soldiers who were testing, and y'all know I love fitness and working out, so this was my time to show up, test my limits, and have some fun.
Want to de-stress? Take shooting lessons to calm you down.
I'm going to do that?
Yes.
Okay.
And after firing off a few test rounds,
Not bad though, right?
Perfect. Yay!
Want to travel the world and experience different cultures? Well, we have over 700 bases in over 80 countries in the world. You'll travel completely for free, interact with locals, except when you have to shoot some of them in the face. But don't worry about that. You'll get the best food to satisfy all your cravings.
We're gonna see how it goes down in the kitchen, how they cook for all the soldiers, and we're also going to see their mobile tent outside where they would typically cook if they were in the middle of nowhere.
Steak, this is with mozzarella and spinach.
Dang! Steak, mozzarella, spinach. That's good. Thank you.
And now to my personal favorite, influencers suggest that joining the US Army can bring an end to your search for high-paying jobs. All you need to do is go Army, and ladies, you can go shopping as much as you like. And guys, you can buy that new gaming PC or that fancy Lambo.
People think you're poor if you join the military. That's not the case. I just got paid, so I went shopping. I spent $10,000. I got a pair of Louboutins, those were $800. And I got this off-white coat, $1,000. And then I got this bracelet from Dolce & Gabbana, it was $900. And then I got a David Yurman bracelet, $500. Don't know if I'll ever wear it. Sunglasses from Dior. They look like a tool. Carhartts. This was $200. I don't know. It's all right.
We headed back to the barracks to get some rest, and here is a quick tour of the barrack that I stayed in. I didn't have any expectations before entering the barracks, so I was very surprised with how nice it was. This was a suite style room, so there were 2 bedrooms, and the rooms were actually very spacious. It honestly reminded me of a much bigger version of my college dorm, and it even had its own closet, which was a lot of extra space. For the rest of the suite, there was a shared kitchen and also a shared bathroom. Today was a very fun and tiring day, so once I got back to the barracks, I went straight to bed to prepare for tomorrow.
Watch enough of these videos, and you would think that the US Army offers you whatever form of luxury you want out of the world. But in reality, the life of a service member is much more bleak than the fancy editing and soulful music portrays. In 2022, 30.6%, more than 4.8 million veterans, reported having at least one disability, which is almost double the percentage of disabilities in the general public, which isn't surprising if you think about the reality of life in service for more than a 30-second TikTok. The Army is built for one thing: destruction of the enemy. The Gen Zs who consume content from military-sponsored influencers can easily forget this, with the Army presenting itself as a gym membership or lifestyle hack of some sort. Having to be combat ready at all times takes its toll on you both physically and mentally. Being in the military also puts a strain on your relationships. Couples having to be separated for months or years, children having unhealthy relationships with their parents, and loss of friendships both on and off the battlefield are valid issues that the US Army does not seem to provide information on anymore. These days, all things are bright and beautiful when you join the Army, but that's far from the reality, very far. Veterans who lived through the 20th century experienced some of the most brutal wars in recent history.
I was the only one up there that wasn't hurt, and scared to death. So I started asking, screaming for help. Somebody get up here and help me. I'm alone. And then 2 little heads. I was down, and all I could see was his head and shoulders. He had a hard hat on. And then I saw the red emblem. It was. And then when I could see a silhouette, I blasted him.
We were in a couple different villages in Sarobi, which is a city right next to Charbonne. And they were right next to a colot. A colot's a house, like a little mud hut. And a lady came out. You don't shoot women or children on the battlefield, but we were just so into the moment we watched her pick up the rifle, and that was, well, the machine gun, and that was the cue, and we just lit her up. And I remember just watching, you know, there was 3 of us, and we just opened up, and it was just blood up against the wall. She just slumped over, and it's like, all right, we got her.
Well, we fought the Germans to win the war. That's what was bred into you. And it took me until about 1970 before I could really, you know, see me way clear. I have nothing against them now. It took me all that time to realize they were the same as us doing what they had to do.
I bet that seeing the recent recruitment styles by the US Army would have their jaws, some of which would be weakened by the horrors of war hitting the ground. Sure, you can make some long-lasting friendships within the military. But US Army recruiters aren't including it in their marketing, that you may also lose all of these friendships in one afternoon, and that's if you make it out alive yourself. This constant fear and trauma is what makes PTSD so common within the veteran population.
2 million Americans served in Afghanistan and Iraq, and at least 600,000 have been diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder.
You'll hear the sounds of fireworks popping up this 4th of July, but those celebrations can actually cause anxiety for people who've been through the trauma of war.
Post-traumatic stress disorder is very real. You know, people who experience trauma of any sort, whether it's military service or a traumatic event, can have flashbacks, can have extreme stress and anxiety responses that are far beyond what anybody who's never experienced that kind of stress can experience. Part of the protective mechanism when you're in a war zone is to protect your space. And so when people that have been in the military especially feel confined, they feel threatened. And that sense of threat isn't something that you can just let go of just because you're transferred out of a war zone into your own suburb. That stays with you for a long time, sometimes your whole life. And it's very easy to begin to relive those moments through your own anxiety. You may not feel like you're there, but you have the feeling inside as if you were there.
And that's not to mention the destruction of your moral compass. One thing you'd agree with me on is that the desire to survive is innate. So what happens when you're in a situation where this desire is constantly on overdrive? Soldiers are pushed to the limits of their minds, suppressing any sense of morality by intentionally targeting as many enemies as possible. When you're a soldier on the battlefront, it doesn't matter that the men in front of you love their country as much as you do yours. It doesn't matter that they also have families waiting for their return. Once their sense of preservation overcomes you, there's no time to investigate who deserves it and who doesn't. If they're bearing the enemy's flag, they're done. Who executes this offender? Not the TikTok soldier showing off his wicked guns, not the Instagram military baddie flaunting her shopping bags. It's a whole new person, driven by an otherworldly sense of perceived justice. But unfortunately, that person doesn't leave once you return home. They stay with you and haunt you for the rest of your life. You suffer with trust issues, worrying about espionage, and spies everywhere you look. The value of a human life reduces before your very eyes, because just a few months ago, all they were targets. Like Call of Duty, except this time, the blood splatter is real, and so are the screams of pain. If you make it out alive, survivor's guilt could weigh you down for the rest of your life, and if you don't, well, all your family gets is $100,000, which could very well be the same amount the military paid that influencer for one video. Being in the Army is not glitz and glamour. It's not a travel hack or a chance to get a big payday. It doesn't matter if you're a medic there to save lives, a delivery guy for Army supplies, a civil engineer working on base.
This is my first time changing a tire, and these soldiers were telling me how important it is to take care of the vehicles. I don't think there is anything more rewarding than learning and doing something for the first time.
Aviation officer leading combat missions. If you've got that uniform on, you're a target, and all is fair in war. This is the problem with the Go Army's influencer campaign. It's brainwashing young people into thinking service is an easy life with lots of cool perks and fun activities. At least the older generation was well aware of the reality of service before enlisting. As a result, there was a mental preparedness that came with that. Still, it didn't make the experience any easier for them. How much worse would it be for a generation of people who have been deceived, hoodwinked, and bamboozled?
We have been hoodwinked,
bamboozled, led astray, run amok, and flat out deceived.
Pitching military service to vulnerable young people in this way lessens the impact of such a commitment. Most people who are targeted by these influencer marketing campaigns weren't even following these influencers to get life-changing advice. They just want some travel life hacks or a new workout routine. It's all lighthearted stuff, and this is a ploy by the US government to group recruitment into other such trivial decisions, so you don't think too hard about it. It is an attempt to lure people based on their desire to belong and their admiration for these social media influencers who seem to hold the secret to better living in this crazy world. Don't be shocked that if this continues, there will be a stark contrast between the views of the older generation on military service and what young people today think of it. So, what's the solution? Should people avoid the military altogether? Of course not. There are still young men and women who value service to the country and count it as an honor to impact the world in this way. The difference is that such people join the Army with a good grasp of the seriousness of such commitment. So, the goal of the United States government should be to approach Army recruitment as transparently as possible. If anyone would be an influencer for the Army recruitment process, they shouldn't merely be gym bros looking for some new challenge, or YouTubers who are hired to frolic around bases, showing off basic things they find fascinating. War veterans with more experience and a sense of responsibility may be a better fit. No one is asking the Army to outrightly spell out gory details as they invite people to join them. However, we can strike a balance between marketing and ethics by providing the right amount of information. That should be the goal.